Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. So, welcome to episode 4 of Block and Talk. And today I'm extremely excited and happy to host Daniel Lowe with us. So, for those of you that don't know, Daniel is currently General Counsel at CakeDeFi, which is a sort of centralized DeFi protocol where they offer different DeFi products and services. And today we're going to talk about all things crypto regulation, what Daniel does, his journey as a lawyer, and much more. So, thank you so much for agreeing to come on board, Daniel. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Happy to be here on, and always happy to support student-led initiatives. So good on you for this, and happy to support.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So, I think a good place to start would be Daniel. If you could tell us a little bit about how your legal journey began. So, like, what made you want to choose law as a profession, and how did you get to wanting to be a lawyer in the first place?
Yeah, very common question. So I think with with a lot of Asian families, right? You had only a few career choices, either doctor, accountant, maybe an engineer, but otherwise lawyer is the last one that's non-scientific and non-math. So it's not that I was bad at math, but I think I just didn't like it as much. So that's why I ended up being a lawyer. I liked, I don't know, everyone says they liked arguing, they like negotiating. So I actually did, but I argued more with my parents than anything. So yeah, I think that was why. But specifically why I think law was interesting to me is because I felt like knowing the law was very empowering. When I was in Canada, when I was younger, my parents were immigrants and their English was not the best. So every time they would read letters and whatnot, they may not understand fully. So for me, understanding not just English, but understanding legalese English was very important because I was able to help those that I help my family and help those I love.
Right. That's really nice. And I think definitely law is a powerful tool to be able to do that. So I think from the next place to go to, which would be good, is like, talking about your legal journey after you decided to decide to become a lawyer. So from what I see, you've had quite an extensive journey. You've had experience with various practice areas such as M&A, PEVC, and other corporate commercial work. And you've also worked both at law firms and in-house and done multiple roles between the same. So how did this all unfold for you? What made you decide that this is my area of interest? So basically, how did your process from law school and beyond work?
Yeah. So actually, just a bit of a caveat before I jump into this. Prior to law school, I actually wanted to do business. In university, I actually ran a student painting franchise business. It was really fun, and at that point I thought maybe I just don't do law, just do commerce and finance right away. But because of my kind of understanding of the law and how it's empowering, I thought maybe it's still worthwhile to pursue it. So I never intended to stay in law long term, if you know what I mean,
Right.
and use law as complementary to my business side. But that actually sparked off my first few years, as you said. Is basically me jumping between in-house and law firm, but also different practice areas too. So initially I started off as a M&A lawyer in the energy field. And then after that, I moved to Hong Kong and did more investment funds, private equity. And after that, I moved over to Singapore and did more, even more niche offshore investment funds and offshore private equity work. And then back to kind of UBS in doing kind of retail investment funds. So it's kind of like all over. And now I'm in crypto. So it's completely different. Now, if you ask me back when I was an M&A lawyer, would I ever end up doing crypto? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I think that's the whole point of being a young lawyer is during those kind of 1 to 4, 1 to 5 PQE levels is to explore as much as you can. You don't know what you're going to commit yourself to in the long term, and it may not be the same. Your first 20 years may be in M&A, the last 20 years may be in IP, who knows? But lawyers are versatile enough to actually change up their practice areas, and they're clever enough to actually thrive when you do that. So I think, like the advice here is basically try to explore as much as you can. You don't need to be pigeonholed as a certain lawyer.
I love that. I love that perspective. And you're absolutely right. I mean, especially today, I think there are so many different avenues and different niches and places to explore within the law. What I personally like is, I mean, you can use law as a set of skills that allow you to then explore areas of your interest through that. I don't think I know of any other field that allows you to sort of, like, for example, if you really like music and you love artists, you can be a media and entertainment lawyer. And similarly, if you like investment funds, and like you said, in your case, you had a commercial bent of mind and you wanted to do business, but then you found a nice experience and a stint with investment funds and the sort. So I think that's extremely very insightful, that you shouldn't box yourself in and be willing to explore. And I guess that's exactly how you are now in your current role as general counsel at CakeDeFi. So, the next question is, because now you're working with CakeDeFi. So when you first came across blockchain, and what about it sort of, piqued your interest, and how did the transition from, so they say, Web 2 to Web 3 happen for you?
Yeah, so I think for me, it was the ICO craze of 2017 that caught my attention. I was, at the time, I was a PE lawyer, and I still am. So fundraising for me was always very interesting. How people kind of pitch their projects and how they raise funds through what vehicles. So that was all very fascinating for me. Seeing how ICOs have been like raising, millions and millions of dollars on just a kind of white paper at sometimes, it seems crazy to me because there's no one that has vetted this company. It's not even a company, it's just this project. No one has vetted these founders. So I thought, this is kind of like the wild, wild west of fundraising here. Is this going to be the future later on? Who knows? But when I actually dove deeper into these projects, into the underlying project, there are a lot of projects that were obviously like rug pulls and scammy, but other ones had a lot of kind of like social ESG purposed goals in mind. So some that are targeting towards cleaning up the oceans or planting trees and whatnot. So I thought there was a lot of potential there for doing good. An area that I was particularly interested in was the movement of money. So helping with payments, kind of like what fintech is in, but more so how to move money and what is money at the end of the day. Because even with our current system of money, it's paper tender, but it's kind of like an IOU to the government. The government says that I back this with some sort of value and you can use it. But what's to say that we still need that going forward? If we had this kind of distributed ledger and we have blockchain to verify our accounts and verify our funds and the value, why do we need this archaic, notion of money still? So all this is very interesting to me, and that's what actually delved me deeper into blockchain, crypto, and which is where I'm ending up now.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I mean, you hit it on the nail when you say there's this whole new financial world which is springing up before our eyes. And I think the thing is, most people have some trouble conceptualizing it, is because it's so intangible in nature. Like any other asset class, you take gold or stocks and you have share certificates, you can actually hold gold. It's way more easy for us to comprehend. But with blockchain, it's extremely a little abstract if somebody's coming into contact with it for the first time, and then understanding, again, like you said, the entire rabbit hole of what money is, how things are moving now, and the potential it holds for not just our financial system and augmenting cross-border payments and efficiency and so on and so forth, but also so many other pan-industry applications. So definitely you've hit the nail there. So now,
Right. Actually, like I can ask you, what is your favorite course in university and law school?
that's a great question. I would say my favorite course has been more driven by my teacher than the subject itself, because I like to teach myself outside of class. Like, if you'd say favorite course, I, again, similar to you, I really enjoy understanding investments and the PVC, and also like anything with regards to the regulatory side of crypto, like from the anti-money laundering aspects and the frameworks to upcoming regulations, studying the MICA and the US laws. I think just and also the IP angles of NFTs, which is extremely fascinating.
Mhm.
So that is my favorite part of law. Law school is more the teacher and the subject they teach rather than the subject itself.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I think had I had those courses in law school, I would have definitely taken them. Um, So for me, what I kind of advise law students to do is, if you do truly like this kind of crypto side, because it's so intangible, it's very conceptual, kind of like tax law. If you've ever seen kind of like tax strawmans, it's all kind of vehicle structures here and there with percentage. Nothing is tangible in that sense. So the course that actually helped me the most in this field is trust and equity. It talks about kind of like in your estate, if you pass away, where does your money go? And then they have like a holding trust, a POA and whatnot. And this actually really helps with my career now, because a lot of it is made up. You know, they put it into this vehicle here, but then so-and-so has a revenue on the stream and royalties. It's all kind of all over the place. So understanding trust and equity is actually very important if you want to understand these conceptual patterns that you see in crypto.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. I didn't hear that before, and I think that's really good advice. And you're right. I mean, even crypto itself can't entirely exist outside of our current structures. It has to, even though it's a brave new world, it still has to proceed from what we have. And like you said, it's about, for example, trust and equity. So I think a next great segue into understanding what it is actually to be a crypto general counsel. Like, let's talk about what you do at CakeDeFi. So before we do that, could you just simply explain to our viewers what CakeDeFi is and the problem it is intending to solve?
Sure. So CakeDeFi generally is a centralized finance company focusing on decentralized finance products. These products include staking, lending, liquidity mining, borrowing, and recently the launch of decentralized tokens. Kind of like, say, if there's a Tesla stock out there, we allow the user to kind of mint a decentralized Tesla, where it kind of mirrors it at the beginning when you mint it, but then afterwards it trades freely on any DEX. So that basically is what CakeDeFi is. In terms of what problem it's aiming to solve. I think it's trying to solve the access to residual income, access to income generally, and the kind of even distribution of residual income, basically. Because what DeFi is that you basically have Bitcoin, ETH, and you deposit it into a platform, and it helps you make money without doing anything. It sits there and generates income. So a lot of the times, you need to have money to make money, and that's how the current system is. You need to have money to buy a property, to rent it out. Whereas here, you can start with anything as low as $1, $2, and deposit it, and it can start to generate income for you. So I think that's really important for DeFi, especially empowering regular users to make their own money and not having a minimum capital cost, basically.
Yeah, minimum capital cost, and also I would say having custody of your own money, if I'm not wrong, because traditionally the custody aspect is at least the value proposition with the crypto world. So again, when you say you touched upon a great aspect of residual income and multiple income streams, passive income. So I saw the CakeDeFi website, and your interest rates on some of your products are extremely high. So how is it that because even other DeFi protocols, if you check them out, you don't find such high interest rates. So how does CakeDeFi manage to do this?
Yeah. So we have to understand that all these rewards, these validation rewards, come from the underlying blockchain. So if the blockchain will award you 10% on validating a block, that's your reward. Some may give you higher, some may give you lower. So in that sense, CakeDeFi is actually based on the DeFi chain blockchain that we help support. And basically we give a pretty high validation reward, because that's the only thing that we do. We only do DeFi. You see other exchanges like Coinbase, Crypto.com and whatnot that provide the same staking and lending products, but because they are an exchange at heart, that's their main primary source of income and product. So they may not provide you with the highest return. So, in that sense, yes, we do provide high returns, and that's because we are focusing purely on DeFi.
Okay, that's really nice. And I also really like the fact that the payouts are daily. So that is also, again, quite powerful. It's almost like imagining you getting paid your salary daily, which is quite, Yeah, quite
Yeah, and
interesting.
you get rewards every 12 hours. So it's twice daily, if anything.
That is very interesting. So, before we just jump to the next question, some people might not know, be familiar with terms like staking, lending, and liquidity mining. So, could you just give a gist of, what this exactly means, just in like a couple of words?
Yeah. Very briefly, staking means if you have a digital asset like Bitcoin, ETH, you deposit it into a platform like CakeDeFi, and we provide you with a return on that. Very simple,
Mhm.
right? When you deposit it, it basically contributes towards validation as well. So it kind of works towards validating a block, but also it helps you generate returns in the same digital asset. Lending is where you lend, say, Bitcoin, and with that lending, we give you a return. Whatever we do on the back end with it, we may give it to another company to trade or to do options with, but at the end of the day, we kind of guarantee you that interest rate. It's kind of like a fixed deposit. Whereas liquidity mining is where you pair two tokens together, or coins. So say Bitcoin and our native DFI. And it's interesting because where they validate this block, you may incur impermanent loss. So that's where one of the coins or tokens value goes down and the other one either stays the same or goes up. If it goes down, you don't make money either. So you only make money here or make increased value if both tokens and coins actually increase at the same time. And basically with that, you mine whatever the native token is. So in this case, Bitcoin and DFI, you mine the DFI and then you get extra DFI.
Okay, that is very interesting. So, you've explained the nature of Cake DeFi quite well. So, why don't we talk about what it is like a day in the life of a general counsel at Cake DeFi? So, how does like a day look for you?
Yeah, so every day is a bit different, but generally speaking, there are 6 different buckets that I work with. There's the regulatory work, marketing and BD, products, intellectual property, operations, and transactions. So as I said, it really depends on day to day. In the mornings, I try to read my emails, and because we're a tech company, we use Slack. So a lot of overnight messages that you have to catch up on. And usually the mornings is when I do all my deep dive work because we have a team based in Germany as well, but internationally, but majority based in Germany. So they wake up usually later afternoon in Singapore time. So my calls really start from 2 p.m. onwards to late into the night. So that's kind of like my general flow. And in terms of recently, I think most of my work has been focusing on the regulatory side because crypto companies require licensing in some countries and there are recent crypto advertising bans. I need to be over that and to understand what impacts our business and what doesn't. So I think for the most part, yeah, that's been my day-to-day so far.
Yeah, that sounds quite interesting. I mean, you have a bunch of, like you're juggling multiple buckets and hats and playing different roles, being a general counsel. So that sounds quite interesting. So, I mean, the regulatory scenario in 2022 is quite accelerating quite fast. I mean, regulations are coming in quite fast. So, for example, you said you work with regulations on a daily basis. So when you are, for example, because crypto is global in nature. So if you are, for example, marketing your product in another jurisdiction, so for example, how do you manage that? Because do you sort of comply with the laws in that country as well? Or is it that you have to comply first with the laws of I mean, you have to comply with the laws of Singapore, but is it dual compliance? How does it work? What are like some sort of the issues that pop up in this scenario for you?
Yeah, great question. So as a Singapore, it's short answer is both. We have to comply with both.
Mhm.
So as you said, for instance, we are a Singapore company, so we have to abide by local laws and local regulations. But also overseas, if say within marketing, we are targeting the public in the UK or in India, and the UK and Indian government or the regulators say that we're not allowed to do so from anywhere, then we need to be aware of those rules and abide by that as well. So even though we're not an Indian or UK company, because we are advertising to the public there, we need to be wary of that. And we may be fined as well by those local regulators.
Correct, correct. And have you also maybe fallen into any trap with influencers? Because there's a whole conversation around influencers wrongfully promoting crypto projects and rug pulls and wrongfully profiting off that. So, I mean, have you heard of that or dealt with it in any capacity?
Um, Not in that sense, but obviously we do engage with influencers on our affiliate marketing and our kind of PR
Mhm.
side. But I would say that before we engage with any influencer, we give them very detailed guideline on what they can and cannot talk about.
Okay.
And obviously you sign appropriate agreements to say that if you do veer outside of these regulations or requirements, we are not liable and you need to take full liability for that.
Mhm.
So I think this is more and more becoming an issue within the space, but there are enough safeguards here to protect crypto companies.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So the last segment, the question I'd like to ask for this segment is, so now you're in the role of a general counsel. So how would you compare that to working at a law firm? What are the similarities and differences? How important is it to really understand finance in your current role? And personally, which one do you have you enjoyed more? And yeah, so would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, sure. The major difference, I think, between law firms, working in a law firm and working in-house is that within a law firm, I always felt that it was more on an advisory level, but also on an expert knowledge basis. You're engaged by clients to know very detailed on your subject area. Whereas as an in-house counsel, you need to be a bit more broad in your advisory. So equally, you are an advisor in your company, but also you have to advise on the commercial viability and the risks that you need to take as a company to kind of proceed further. So half the time, yes, I'm giving legal advice, but the other half is giving commercial recommendations on what we should do given the risk tolerance of the company or the risk of the transaction at hand. So in that sense, it becomes like a risk analysis role more than an expert knowledge.
That's quite nice. So I would assume that would also, because I mean constantly there's a lot of innovation in terms of the products offer. So would it also involve, like for example, working with the product development team at each stage to make them aware of the risks and accordingly then be able to structure that product which is regulatory fit for the market?
Yeah, especially, the great example, because as a DeFi company, we stay relevant by rolling out relevant products, relevant services. So with our products team, we try to get involved right at the get-go so that we're aware of how the product evolves. Because if you get engaged at the very end, you may not know the history of certain changes, but that could be very helpful in you drafting the terms, conditions, or coming up with regulations or understanding, what the intent of the product is.
Correct.
So yeah, you work closely with the products team on anything related to the product, structuring the product too. So if there's a way to structure the product without being regulated, you try to do that, obviously. So there's less red tape. So like very important to get involved right at get-go and to understand that process and that flow.
Right, that's quite interesting and personally fascinating because we've heard of product councils in, like tech otherwise, but in crypto it's less heard of. But I think it's an extremely important role. So coming to the next question. So since you work in the DeFi space, and like you said, the DeFi space is notoriously known as the wild west of crypto. And there are sort of many risks like rug pulls and scams and hacks. So, according to you, in your experience, what are the biggest risks and legal challenges in DeFi? And how do you think we could sort of work towards overcoming them?
I think one of the biggest risks in not just DeFi, but just generally in crypto is the inconsistent regulation globally. Even within some countries like the US, there's different regulators that take a different stance on what crypto is, how it's defined. So I think that's the biggest challenge because crypto companies are global in scope. They're not restricted to just one country like Spain or whatnot. So you have to be aware of all regulations that apply to you. They're ever evolving. So one day you could be on side in a certain country, the next day you could be completely offside.
Mhm.
So it's staying up to date with that, but also understanding that some countries may ban it completely, like China. But it's really hard to keep track of. But that's why a lot of crypto companies are working closely with regulators now to see if we can get some clarity and more prescriptive regulation so that we can actually abide by it, and also working closely with law firms right now that are building out a blockchain or crypto practice.
Correct. I mean, it's definitely not easy because the space evolves at a really fast rate, and sometimes you can't even blame the regulators because it's not like we've ever been taught this. It's you have to just learn on the job for it's that's the case with everyone. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's good. And 2022 seems to be shaping up to be, towards a lot more regulatory certainty and clarity. So coming to that, like, another aspect of regulation is like different governments, like you said, have different policies, and that in turn attracts investments and startups and hosts a culture. So CakeDeFi is incorporated in Singapore, and Singapore in general is, a popular destination for crypto startups, and was sort of early on, like, wanted to position itself as a leader in the market. So why do you think it's a hot destination, and what has Singapore done that has sort of, made it what it is today for crypto?
I think the Singapore government is cautiously welcoming with regard to crypto. They try to say that they want to be a crypto hub, but they also don't.
Okay.
So for instance, we have sufficient kind of sandboxes where crypto companies can develop their products and test out. But also the MAS, which is the Monetary Authority of Singapore, has recently published guidelines to say that all crypto advertising is banned. So you can see there's, in one hand, they're trying to be supportive, but the other hand, they're trying to protect the public interest. So I think going forward, you will see Singapore taking more of an aggressive stance in becoming the crypto hub, because Hong Kong at this point was vying for the same, but they're more institutional. I think Singapore is more retail oriented, which is what I think better for the crypto space.
That's an interesting distinction. So I mean, now that you've touched upon Hong Kong, which is another jurisdiction, like you mentioned, so and like we've spoken about so far, crypto is borderless in nature. But which other jurisdictions do you think, have a strong regulatory framework or a attractive one, and one conducive to grow, letting the ecosystem grow?
I think if you're looking at strong regulation and cohesiveness, you should look at Europe. As you said before, Europe is actually working towards a markets in crypto assets framework, MiCA, which is basically a package of overarching cryptocurrency regulations, and would simplify crypto regulations for 27 member states, which is a lot of countries. So basically, where you can, if you get a crypto license in a certain EU member state, under MiCA, that license would be passportable in all the other 26 countries. So that's a very powerful move for the EU, but also for the adoption of crypto in a trading bloc like the EU.
Okay, that's true. Definitely, MiCA is a promising framework. And to just add on to that, I would say even the UAE is really positioning itself, as a hub. They have now their own virtual assets regulator, and they've licensed over 150 companies in the past year itself, the DMCC, and it just seems to be a really hot spot for crypto. We're having blockchain. Binance is having their blockchain week this week in Dubai, and there's a lot of strong community in Dubai. So UAE, I also would say, is definitely trying to position itself to be the mecca of crypto in a way. So my next question to you would be, uh, 2020 was basically the year of the DeFi summer, and in general we know that blockchain and crypto are sort of, like I said, the space is so fast and evolving, and there's a Cambrian explosion of projects. So 2020 was DeFi summer, 2021 was NFTs. So what do you think 2022 holds? What's going to be the theme for this year?
I think it's a mix of GameFi and DeFi. So I'll explain why. GameFi, which for those that don't know, is basically called, commonly known as play to earn. Whether through your quests, your trading, or other mechanisms within the game, GameFi allows gamers to earn digital assets through their in-game efforts. In this sense, because you're earning digital assets in your game, and sometimes you have to wear certain items to continuously collect your digital assets. It kind of reminds me of DeFi, whereby you deposit your BTC and whatnot into a service and it collects interest for you. It generates interest for you. So this is where I see where GameFi is actually increasing in popularity. You'll see a reemergence of DeFi as well, because I think they work hand in hand, where you kind of earn these digital assets in the game and you can kind of put them to residual use through DeFi.
Yeah, that's very interesting. GameFi is definitely, it has actually changed the livelihoods of so many people, especially with Axie Infinity starting this entire revolution, and people actually earning some more than decent living off playing games, which one wouldn't think possible. I think in 2019. So that's definitely quite true. And another aspect which I think of GameFi that people are trying to target is to have a play to earn system where you onboard people by incent to the Web3 community by incentivizing them through gamification to learn, complete tasks. And that would, I feel like, be the bridge towards actually getting the rest of the world into the crypto world. And that I personally think will be quite exciting. So, my next question to you would be, there's as we both know, so much happening. It's really hard to keep up with the crypto space every day. But for you, what would you say that are sources of information that you refer to that are reliable and good to keep up to date in the space?
Yeah, on the very surface level, I think there are a lot of resources you can refer to. Personally, I refer to websites like Blockworks, Cointelegraph, CoinDesk. On YouTube, I also watch Whiteboard Crypto, which is animated, 2-minute, 3-minute explanations on crypto concepts, which is really nice. I also follow Tom Bilyeu and Raoul Paul on YouTube. They talk about kind of like more higher level concepts of crypto and DeFi and what this all means for society. And of course, Julian Hosp, our CEO, he is a huge crypto influencer. So it's really great content on basically the trajectory of DeFi, crypto, Web3, but also talking about our company, CakeDeFi, and what we do here. But obviously, if you want to dive deeper and if you have the time, join the Discords, join the Reddits on particular crypto projects that you're interested in. They do take a long time to go through, and it's a bit of a rabbit hole. I haven't gone there myself because I don't have the time, but I know a lot of friends that love going into these communities and talking about projects and seeing the spin-offs, and you could get rewarded by actually getting initial airdrops. So, it's not all a waste of time, basically.
Yeah, no, that's a great bunch of sources to build, I would say, a holistic perspective for sure, because one is reading sources that are reported from other people and videos, and then actually being in the community and seeing how things play out for yourself. So I think that's pretty great. So, Daniel, the next thing that I'd like to come to is like, you have gotten to where you are today, but obviously it's not been an easy journey. And along the way, you've learned a lot. And I think that is where you decided that, you wanted to share these learnings with people, and hence decided to be, for those that don't know, a career strategist and mentor, where you basically talk to law students like you're talking with me and so many others, and help them, build their own brand, which is something you strongly believe in, there, and path to an international legal career. So, what is it that inspired you to start this? Why did you think it was important? And, how did that start off for you?
I think it started from law school for me when I was applying for training contracts and summer schemes. And I saw that so many people were focusing on their CV, on their cover letter, that they were neglecting other softer ways of actually getting a job, like people say networking, but also engaging with existing trainees, meeting them for coffee, or even sending them a LinkedIn message, developing community, right? Participating in student clubs and whatnot. So I think for me, it was trying to convey the message to law students now to not focus so much on this paper submission, but more on the relationship side. Specifically because I think the relationship reflects on your brand. And for me, I'm really big proponent on personal brand. So I believe that your personal brand is your value add, and it stays with you for life. And some may say it's your legacy that you leave behind as well. So I used to think that also a company would secure my brand, belong to a company, a big company would afford me with the reputation that it has, the prestige, and it'll stay with me for a lifetime. Part of that is true for your initial career, but later on, people don't care about that. They care about what you can provide to them and what your brand means. So, I try to instill this in law students and junior lawyers is right away. You can start this right now. LinkedIn, you can start posting, blogging, you can start doing YouTube videos, you can start engaging with other lawyers in the LinkedIn community or elsewhere. So these are more important, I think, than actually just focusing on a CV and you're doing 10 iterations of the same thing.
I love to hear that. I think what you said in one word, trying to build a community and, participating in that is so important. And, it honestly, it might not, I mean, the intention shouldn't be that I want to build it because I want a job, but just to be able to learn so many different things from different conversations and be able to, you don't know one thing somebody says, it takes you somewhere completely different. And I think that itself is more valuable than you can put into any, quantify it in any manner. So that's quite I quite resonate with that. So if somebody wants to contact you further and maybe wants to engage with you one-on-one, so where can they find out more about you and how and the services you offer?
Yeah, so until I'm fully transitioned into Web3, you can find me on LinkedIn. So you can search Daniel Low and reach out to me. I'm fairly responsive. And as I said, I do provide career coaching and career strategy on the side. So if you're interested, do let me know.
Sure, I will definitely put the links to that in the description. And another thing, which, since this is sort of what you do and you might have had some experiences, a lot of law students nowadays, especially with crypto booming, want to just start their career off in, this space and want to be a crypto lawyer, if that's the term. But what would be your advice to them? Like, how should they, navigate in order to be able to start off in this space?
I think as law students and lawyers, you have to keep in mind that your core competency still needs to be legal concepts and practical legal experience. There is no such thing as kind of blockchain law or Web3 law and whatnot. You're still going to be hired as a lawyer. So you need to have those core concepts instilled in you from the get-go. Demonstrating legal basics like contracts, M&A, transactions, IP. These are all things that you can actually do in law school and also as a junior lawyer. So really hone those skills. Other thing you can do is actually stay obviously plugged in with the lingo in crypto. So, and also concepts like code is law. This is a topic of intense discussion at the moment and one that will be litigated extensively. So these are kind of developments that you should maybe keep up to date with. It's not hard law, but it's something important. So you can actually impress crypto companies and crypto practices when you do apply for a job.
That's really quite well said. So thank you for that. And so Daniel, I think we've reached the tail end of our discussion, and I always like to end it on a lighter note by asking a few fun questions. So the first is, I saw this in your previous interview while I was preparing for this, is that you said that as you're an international lawyer, you went to Hong Kong and Singapore, but you went there for the food. So what is then your favorite thing to eat?
My go-to, I love noodles, all sorts of noodles, but my go-to is pho, which is Vietnamese beef noodles. I've liked it since I was in Canada. So now that I'm so close to Vietnam, it's one of those things that every time I go, I eat at least 3-4 bowls a day. So
That's great. That's great. So apart from exploring different places to eat, what is it that you like to do outside of work otherwise?
I'm a big traveler. So that's, part of the reason, once again, I came to Asia for the food, but also for the travel. So I never want that to stop. The other thing I try to do is to stay active and healthy, because I think as long as you stay healthy and active, you can actually travel more, you can eat more. And also helps you with in terms of your thinking process, and your brain kind of constantly, evolves, and it's just good overall for your health to maintain that.
Yeah, and I think as a knowledge athlete, which is what lawyers are, it's really important to be at the top of your mental game, and I think physical fitness is a huge part of that. So that's great. That's great. And lastly, if you could meet one crypto influencer, celebrity, or figure in the space, who would it be and why would it be that person?
It would be for sure Elon Musk, because I don't know anyone as controversial in the crypto side, especially when he recently challenged Putin to a fight for Ukraine. So I think that's kind of crazy, but I would love to see his thinking and how he views the world, because I think it's definitely very unique.
Yeah, it's he's definitely one hard character to box at all, especially last year with the whole Dogecoin pump and dump, and yeah, every day there's something new that Elon comes up with. So that he's definitely someone to follow in this space. So thank you so much, Daniel. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And, I think this has been quite an insightful and valuable session from the crypto perspective, but also I think a lot of lessons for law students in this episode. So thank you for that. And I hope to have more of these conversations with you. And it was great to host you. So thank you so much once again.
Thanks, Han. I appreciate it.
I'll just stop the recording.